Fear in most role-playing games is just a mechanic. It affects die rolls and takes away player agency. A character who is afraid of wolves, for example, might not be able to take certain actions, or somebody who is afraid of the dark or spiders or whatever, that character is going to have a debuff to some rolls. But it's rubbish. It's rubbish to say your character can't open a door or look in a box or speak to an NPC because of some effect or status they've got. That's not scaring your players. That's taking away their agency. You can do less things because you're scared isn't what I think you want to go for. What you want to do is have the players actually making choices based on how frightened they are. If you can scare the players, they'll take away their own agency. To explain how this will work, let's define some terms. 3 I want you to think about: shock, fear, and dread. Shock is the easiest one. It's the one that people think is going to make their game scary. It is the equivalent to shouting boo. Visceral descriptions of gore or injuries or horrible dead bodies. And the difficulty here is that this is something a lot of games include anyway. There's nothing frightening about a dead body, particularly in a game where the player characters have killed hundreds, perhaps monsters. Fear is often more mechanically used. You might roll on a table to see what sort of things your character's now going to be afraid of because they've had a nasty incident, or you make a fear roll and now your character is afraid of chickens. It's not very frightening for the players if it is frightening in game for the characters. But dread I think is the one that wins. And dread isn't being frightened by something going boo or bang or splat or in front of you. Dread is being scared to do something because of what you fear the result is going to be. I don't want to do that. That's going to lead to bad things. So you're not going to scare your players better than they're going to scare themselves. Often when we're GMing, we want to give incredibly immersive and evocative descriptions, and a printed module will have for a particular room or NPC or dismembered horror body part, perhaps a description for you to read out all about the colours, the smells, the textures, patterns and so on. And sometimes I think this is a mistake for us because we're trying to emulate a visual experience like being in a movie. We know a movie is immersive because we can see all of the things going on and we think we're there. But the way storytelling I think is most effective and can be the frighteningest, if that's a word, is when we leave enough to the player's imagination. And I think trying to emulate a horror movie by giving lots and lots and lots of detail can sometimes be the wrong thing to do. What we want to do is use the player's imaginations. Here is the way that we use dread. Dread is they don't want to do it because they're afraid of what's going to happen. They don't want to open the box. Everything that's happened so far has led them to the realization that what's going to be in the box is going to be horrible, and they don't want to see it. Oh no. No, don't open the box. Don't open the... Oh, don't open the box. And the first way we can do this is by having things not be as they seem. There's been a clue that something's been wrong, that's been off for a while. There's been something, there's been maybe just a smell, but it's the only thing you've described as having a smell in the village. Oh, but there's one smell. There's one smell in the village. It's a sugary smell, a weird sugary smell. And every time you see a bee, it's going in a certain direction. And you can't find the missing person. But as you get closer to the wardrobe, you can hear the buzzing sound. You have to build dread up slowly. Dread is the opposite of boo. Dread is slow and it's gentle. So things are not always as they seem. And as you start to use this, you will hear your players say things like, oh no, what if it's such and such? Oh God, it could be werewolves. Oh no. What if that's actually the ghost of the person we met earlier? Sometimes you'll hear these and you'll think, wow, that is actually slightly better than my idea. In this situation, it's probably best you don't pinch the idea, because if you do, they're going to stop wanting to say things out loud in case they're accidentally wishing them into existence. So if there's a coincidence and they go, but what if it's exactly the thing you've written down? Then sure, go, yes, well done, you've worked it out. But don't nick too much from them. Another good tool, if you want to increase dread, is give them things they're not supposed to know. We often try not to give players out of character information. Give them out of character information that they can't use. Have a meanwhile. You will settle down for the night in the inn. Meanwhile, we won't worry about hit points or any rolls, but let's imagine that you are now these names. You are the teenagers on the edge of town who've gone out to investigate the strange noise in the dark. We won't worry about giving you hit points. Now, we won't worry about giving you hit points is a big clue that these people are about to die horribly. We won't worry about rolls. Also tells them this is not you playing characters who are going to have any competency or survive. And then they can just enjoy being fragile for a bit. A lot of games don't let you enjoy being fragile. More on dread in a second, but one thing I do want to say is this. Talking about fears. Maybe you've had a session 0 and one of your players has told you they're afraid of spiders, and another one has said they really don't want any stories involving scary things or peril happening to children. You've got a list of all of these. When it comes to your Halloween game, your frightening game, you could look at that list and go, right, what shall I do with these? The correct thing to do with them is not use them. Do not use them. That's not being a good GM. Using people's actual fears is being a dick. So let's talk about 2 ways to get back out of a meanwhile, to get back out of things going horribly wrong. First is that you'll be tempted to say perhaps the monster crashes through the door and the blood is everywhere and you're lying there screaming and you realize that such and such has just died, and then you wake up and it was all a dream and it's okay, you're safe, you're back in the inn. Have you ever been tempted to do it was all a dream? Comment below. Tell me how your players actually thought it went. I'm not a big fan of it was all a dream. I think too many games make the characters basically immortal and you're not going to have to worry about it. But there is a way to do it that will still be very much dread and horror, which is to have it was all a dream, but was it? Because the first thing is, why have all of the characters had the same dream? what's that about? Is someone giving them a message? Is there something else at work here? Second, if you're planning for it to all be a dream, it wasn't a sudden moment of inspiration that caused you to do that, then you can plant clues in the section about how this wasn't a dream, it was a vision. Staggering back out of the inn in the morning, rubbing your heads and thinking about what you saw, you realise in your dream that tree was just being planted. And now it's 30 years old. What if, oh, and then the players can work out for themselves that what they saw wasn't a dream, it was a vision of things that happened long ago with their characters standing in for the people who were originally murdered by the monster. This is particularly good for something like Monster of the Week, where you want to be able to give them information. How better to dump lore than have them play through it? And the other direction can be good as well. Rather than saying you stagger out of the inn, the motel, you wake up in the morning and realise it was in the past. What if, when you talk to the innkeeper, you realise he's clean shaven? And you say to him, have you ever had a beard? And he says, no, but I have been thinking about growing one. I reckon it'll take me a couple of months though. And you realise that what you saw wasn't a dream, it was a vision of the future. Now, I'm going to give you my ultimate tool, my perfect tool, the thing I try and do every single session, no matter what system or genre I'm doing, at the end of a session, that makes people say, brilliant, we had a great time, when are we next having a session? Can we book it now? Can we work out the schedule? Can we get our calendars up? First though, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of using actual dread. So, things are not always the way they seem. As you get to the edge of the clearing, you realise that there is a shallow grave, a dip in the ground, and you clear away the wet, rotting leaves that have fallen in the last week, and you can see staring up at you the face, the innocent, unsuspecting face of Gladys, the innkeeper's daughter. She looks completely peaceful and calm. And she also looks like she's been dead for maybe a couple of weeks. Of course, if she's been dead for a couple of weeks, who was that? Who was that waved you off just this morning? You straighten up and look around the clearing and realise there's dozens of these all around the edge of the clearing. Okay, so the idea is the players are going to start going, but wait, that means that, but what if, now these are creepy. If you think particularly creepy, comment below. If you can come up with a couple of sentences that would be good for this, write it in the comments below, because this is an example of what I like to do at the end of every session. That is a cliffhanger. A cliffhanger is something that says to your players, when we come back, we'll resolve this. Or it could be happening somewhere else. Okay, that's the experience points dealt with. Okay, brilliant. Oh, before you go, picture the scene 3 miles away. Sitting in his truck, Damien wipes his mouth, puts down his napkin, and picks up his gun. He gets out, and the camera pans out to reveal he is standing outside your mother's house. And there we'll end for this evening. Let's make sure we've got all of our things. Cool. And then they're going to say, whoa, 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 whoa. when we're playing again. A cliffhanger is great. There's two things a cliffhanger needs. Number one, it has to be genuinely at the end. You can't have it happen and then have anything else happen in the game. So if you've got typical end of session stuff you do, if you're in a game like this and you're giving out experience points and so on, do all of that first. And then before you say, right, that's it, we stop, then you do the cliffhanger. Because it's got to have, second thing, absolutely no player agency. It can happen in front of them if it's something they're hearing someone say or do, but it shouldn't be something that they would want to react to instantly or get a saving throw against. It should be something that is just, it's there and we're stopping. Well, we'll just have to deal with that next time. A cliffhanger is also a great way to put in something that you prepared earlier and haven't used. If you've got a scene that you didn't get to, then you can hint at it. When you're writing out your skeleton for the adventure and you come back and you flesh it out and you think to yourself, I'm not going to use that in the end. Oh, we didn't get to this. Oh, but I want them to know about that. A cliffhanger is the way to go there. And thinking about fleshing out a skeleton, if you have a skeleton in the game and you can slowly flesh it out as the evening goes on, that in its own way is kind of creepy and dreadful, isn't it? That's about all for this one. If you have got suggestions or ideas for ways to be creepy rather than just shocking, I would love to hear them. Or maybe in your group, shock and horror work. What systems have you found that works particularly well in? In another video, I'm going to talk about having a genre pivot and how changing what the game is about can be a great way to bring in or take back out a more overt horror element. But for now, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.